A poor cowboy took over a deserted ranch for free, and when he dropped his first bucket into what should have been a dry well, a desperate voice cried out from the darkness below. The townspeople had laughed as the bedraggled drifter signed papers for the cursed property, placing bets on whether he'd disappear like the previous three owners or simply flee within a week. They saw him as another fool, destined for the same mysterious fate that claimed every man who'd tried to claim this land. But the trembling girl hiding in the well's shadows holds secrets about why those men truly vanished, and papers she's discovered that could transform the desperate cowboy's life forever. Yet the same forces that eliminated the others are already watching, and the girl's knowledge makes them both targets of a conspiracy that reaches far beyond a simple ranch. Can two outcasts survive long enough to uncover why this worthless land is worth killing for? Before we continue, comment where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will publish a story there. Zane Thornton rode into Clearwater Creek with $3 in his pocket and dust in his lungs. His horse limped from exhaustion. His boots had holes that let in sand with every step. The saloon fell silent when he pushed through the doors. Men in clean shirts looked him over like a carcass. Their eyes lingered on his patched clothes and empty holster. Another drifter, someone muttered. Won't last a week. Zane ignored the stares and walked to the bar. The bartender served him water without being asked. It tasted like pity. Looking for work, Zane said. Ain't none. The bartender wiped a glass that was already clean. Drought killed most ranches. What's left ain't hiring saddle tramps. Laughter erupted from a corner table. Samuel Wickham, the town banker, stood up with a grin. His suit was too fancy for this dusty place. His belly strained against gold buttons. I got something for you, cowboy. Wickham's voice carried across the room. Documents, during long winter nights. The phrase, all existing assets and claims, stood out. Standard language, but it meant everything on the property belonged to him. Water rights, mineral claims, improvements. Everything. Zane signed with a steady hand. Congratulations on your new grave, someone called out. The crowd found this hilarious. Wickham rolled up the papers quickly, too quickly, like he was afraid Zane might change his mind. Ranch is 15 miles north. Follow the creek bed until it splits. Take the left fork. Wickham's voice was cheerful. Good luck, cowboy. Zane rode out as the sun began its descent. The laughter followed him until distance swallowed the sound. The Boone Ranch appeared like a mirage in the late afternoon heat. The main house leaned to one side. Fence posts stood at drunken angles. The barn had lost half its roof to some long-ago storm. But the well was intact. Stone walls rose 3 feet above ground. A wooden beam stretched across the top with rope and pulley still attached. Zane unsaddled his horse and let it drink from a cracked trough. The animal was too tired to wander far. He dropped his bedroll near the house and walked to the well. The rope felt solid despite its age. He lowered the bucket into darkness and waited for the splash. Instead, he heard something else. A voice. Weak but unmistakably human. Help me. Zane leaned over the stone rim. The well descended into black nothing. Who's down there? Please don't hurt me. The voice was young, female, terrified. I'm not going to hurt you. Zane grabbed the rope. Are you injured? I can climb if you help. Zane braced his boots against the stone base and pulled. The rope grew heavy. A face appeared in the dim light filtering down the shaft. Dark skin, wide, frightened eyes, clothes torn from rough stone. She was maybe 8. Rights certificates, mineral claims, survey reports. His father's training kicked in. These weren't just random papers, they were valuable, extremely valuable. Where exactly did you find these? Loose floorboard in the kitchen, wrapped in oilcloth like someone wanted them preserved. Amara pointed toward the house. There's more. Letters, a journal. Thunder rumbled in the distance, but the sky was clear. Zane realized it wasn't thunder at all. It was horses, multiple riders approaching fast. Amara heard it too. Terror filled her face. They found me. Get inside, Zane whispered. Amara was already moving toward the house. They slipped through the broken front door as dust clouds appeared on the horizon. 3 riders approached at a steady pace, not rushing, but not casual either. Zane peered through a gap in the boarded window. The lead rider wore a black suit despite the desert heat. His companions dressed like ranch hands, but carried themselves like soldiers. That's Fletcher Knox, Amara breathed beside him. He's been hunting me for weeks. The riders stopped 50 yards from the house. Knox dismounted and straightened his jacket. His movements were precise, calculated. Thornton, Knox called out. We know you're in there. Come out and talk. Zane stepped onto the sagging porch. He kept his hands visible but ready. You know my name. I don't know yours. Fletcher Knox. I represent certain business interests in the territory. Knox's smile never reached his eyes. Heard you acquired some property today. News travels fast. Small town. People talk. Knox gestured toward his men. We'd like to make you an offer. I just got here. Haven't even seen the whole place yet. Knox pulled a leather portfolio from his saddlebag. $500. Cash. Today. The amount was staggering. More money than Zane had seen in years. For a supposedly covered thousands of acres. Mineral claims stretched across 3 counties. Survey reports detailed underground springs and aquifer systems. But one document made Zane's pulse quicken. A recent territorial survey marked confidential, the kind his father used to file with the territorial office. Sweet mother of pearl, he whispered. The survey revealed a massive underground spring system directly beneath the ranch. Not just a well or small source, an entire network that could supply water to half the territory. Zane's father had drilled this knowledge into him during their years together. Water was life in the desert. Water was power. Water was money. You understand what this means? Amara asked. When Wickham said the ranch came with all existing assets and claims, he meant this. Zane held up the water rights certificates. These papers make me the legal owner of enough water to supply every mine and ranch from here to Santa Fe. So why give it away free? That was the question. Zane studied Knox's offer again. $500 was generous for grazing land. For water rights worth thousands, it was insulting. Because they planned to steal it back. Understanding dawned slowly. Give it to some desperate fool who'd be easy to intimidate or eliminate. Amara pulled out more papers. Letters in Sterling Boone's handwriting detailed strange visits from businessmen. Offers to buy that started generous and became threatening. Equipment sabotage, cattle poisoning, a systematic campaign of terror. Boone fought them, Amara said, until he disappeared. The final letter was addressed to whoever found his papers. Boone had hidden evidence at the old Mission Santa Cruz ruins 5 miles east. Insurance against the people trying to steal his land. He knew they'd kill him, Zane realized, but he made sure someone could finish what he started. They spent the night reading every document. Boone's journal revealed a conspiracy that stretched beyond simple land theft. Corrupt carried pain. Found him talking crazy about water rights and government conspiracies. Week later, His horse came back without him. What about his body? Never found. Same with the others. Like they just vanished into the desert. Amara emerged from the house carrying water from the well. Elena's eyes widened with surprise. Child, what are you doing here? Surviving, Amara said simply. Elena studied them both. You two have any idea what you've stumbled into? Zane made a decision. He showed Elena the water rights certificates. Her reaction confirmed his worst fears. Holy saints preserve us. You own the Clearwater Springs system. You know about this? Every rancher in 3 counties knows about Clearwater Springs. Most valuable water source in the territory. Elena's face went pale. That's why they killed the others. That's why they'll kill you too. Elena stayed through the morning, sharing what she knew about the water conspiracy. Her own ranch had faced pressure from Knox's people, offers that became threats, equipment that mysteriously broke, cattle that sickened overnight. They're systematic, Elena explained. Target small ranchers first, work their way up to bigger spreads. How many others? Zane asked. 12 families in my valley alone. Most sold out rather than fight. Elena's jaw tightened. Those who refused had accidents. Amara listened while organizing Sterling Boone's papers. Her memory was remarkable. She could recite entire conversations word for word, quote documents she'd read days earlier with perfect accuracy. You learned that in school? Elena asked. Never went to school. Taught myself by listening and watching. Amara's voice carried quiet pride. Had to memorize everything because writing materials were forbidden and territorial officials. Payment records showing bribes to judges and land commissioners. Maps showing planned water diversions that would drain entire river systems. This is massive, Zane breathed. The conspiracy involved dozens of participants across 3 territories. Federal irrigation funds were being diverted through fraudulent mining claims. Water rights were being transferred illegally to shell companies. Small ranchers were being systematically robbed of their most valuable asset. Amara memorized each document as Zane read them aloud. Her mind became a living archive of corruption and conspiracy. Judge Morrison signed transfer orders for properties that don't even exist, she recited. Knox paid him $300 for each fake signature. Here's Wickham's cut. 20% of all water rights sales. Zane held up a ledger. He's made thousands from this scheme. They found records of other ranchers who'd resisted, families who'd died in suspicious accidents, properties that were seized after owners mysteriously disappeared. The pattern was clear and terrifying. But most shocking was the scope of Knox's plan. The Shadow Company wasn't just stealing existing water rights. They intended to control water access across the entire territory. Every mine, every town, every ranch would pay tribute to drink. They're not just thieves, Amara said. They're building an empire. Thunder rolled across the desert. Real thunder this time, promising rain that rarely came. They reburied the empty box and headed back toward the ranch. Halfway home, they saw flames on the horizon. Elena's horse was gone when they reached the ranch. The barn was burning. The house showed signs of forced entry. Furniture was overturned, papers scattered, everything searched with violent efficiency. "Elena!" Zane called out. They found her tied up behind the well. Rope burns marked her wrists. A bruise darkened her left cheek. "They came right after you left," she gasped as Zane cut her bonds. "Knox brought 6 men this time." grew excited. Knox can buy local judges, but he can't buy federal marshals. Nearest federal marshal is in Santa Fe. 2 days' ride if you kill your horse getting there. Then we better start riding, Zane said. Elena shook her head. Knox will track you down before you reach the territorial line. His men know this desert better than you do. The situation seemed hopeless. They had evidence of massive corruption, but no way to deliver it safely. Knox had resources, connections, and the advantage of home territory. But Amara wasn't finished thinking. "We don't go to the federal marshal," she said quietly. "We bring the federal marshal to us." Her plan was audacious. Use themselves as bait to catch Knox in the act of federal crimes. Let him commit new violations while federal authorities watched. Turn his aggression against him. "That's suicide," Elena protested. "No," Zane said, understanding dawning. "That's justice." The plan would require perfect timing, unshakable courage, and help from someone with federal authority. But it might be their only chance to survive and expose the conspiracy. Knox wanted a final confrontation. They would give him one he'd never forget. Elena knew a way to contact federal authorities without traveling to Santa Fe. Her brother worked for the Territorial Postal Service and had connections with Federal Marshal James Harrison. The marshal had been investigating reports of corruption, but lacked solid evidence. "Harrison's been asking questions about missing ranchers and suspicious land transfers," Elena explained. "Nobody wanted to talk because they feared Knox's people. They spent the pre-dawn hours planning." Elena would ride to town and send word to Marshal Harrison through her brother's network. Zane and Amara would stay at the ranch, appearing vulnerable while gathering more evidence of Knox's operations. The plan required precise time. He stepped closer, studying Zane's face for tells. "What makes you think this worthless dirt is valuable? Maybe the fact that you're offering $500 for land nobody wanted." Knox exchanged glances with his men. Silent communication passed between them, the kind that came from shared violence. "Perhaps we should discuss this inside." They moved into the ransacked house. Knox's men positioned themselves to block exits. Standard intimidation tactics, but effective. "Show me what you found," Knox demanded. Zane produced some of the water rights certificates. Not all of them, but enough to confirm Knox's suspicions. The man's eyes widened as he recognized official territorial seals. "Where did you get these?" "Hidden in the house. Previous owner left quite a collection." Knox studied each document carefully. His expression shifted from anger to calculation to something approaching respect. "You understand what these represent. Water rights. Valuable ones, judging by your interest. The most valuable in the territory." Knox folded the papers and tucked them inside his coat. "Unfortunately, you won't be keeping them. Those are legal documents. Stealing them is a federal crime." Knox laughed. "Who's going to report it? You'll be gone by nightfall, just like the others." The confession was exactly what they needed. Amara listened from her hiding spot, memorizing every word. Knox was admitting to murder and theft with casual indifference. "The others fought back," Knox continued. "Boone especially. Kept babbling about evidence and federal marshals. Made things unnecessarily messy." "What happened to him?" "Same thing that happens to all stubborn men in the desert. They disappear." Knox signaled his men. They moved to surround Zane, hands drifting toward weapons. But Zane had spent years reading dangerous situations. His father's surveying work had taken the said. Knox grabbed Zane by the shirt. "You'll bring her here. Today. Or I'll make your death last days instead of minutes." "Can't do that." "Why not?" "Because she's already gone to Santa Fe." Carrying copies of everything we found. This was the crucial lie. Everything depended on Knox believing Amara had escaped with evidence, that federal marshals were already involved. Knox released him and stepped back. His mind was clearly racing, calculating risks and responses. "You're bluffing." "Maybe. But can you afford to be wrong?" The question hung in the air, like smoke from the burned barn. Knox had built his empire on controlling information and eliminating threats. But if evidence had already reached federal authorities, his entire organization was compromised. Even if she made it to Santa Fe, it would take days for marshals to reach us. True. But they'd come eventually, and they'd bring warrants and questions you can't answer. Knox walked to the window and stared toward the horizon. His empire was crumbling around the possibility that one girl with perfect memory had escaped his reach. "Find her," he told his men. "Search every trail between here and Santa Fe. Bring her back alive." "And him?" one gunman asked, nodding toward Zane. Knox's smile returned, cold and final. "He stays here until we know the truth." Knox left 2 guards at the ranch, while his other men searched for Amara. The gunmen settled in for a long wait, convinced their prisoner had nowhere to run. They were wrong. Amara had slipped out through the back window during Knox's interrogation. She moved like smoke through the desert scrub, using skills learned from months of survival. Every shadow became cover. Every sound became warning. She reached Elena's ranch as the sun hit its peak. Elena was already back from town, having sent word to Marshal Harrison through her brother's postal connections. Proper signatures. "Judge Morrison handled all the transfers," explained Tom Garrett, whose brother had vanished after refusing to sell. Rubber stamped everything Knox brought him. "You have copies of the paperwork?" Elena asked. "Hidden them away. Figured someone might want to see them someday." Garrett's documents revealed the full scope of the conspiracy. Dozens of properties transferred illegally. Water rights concentrated in shell companies controlled by Knox's organization. Federal irrigation funds diverted through fraudulent mining claims. Amara memorized everything as Elena collected physical evidence. Her perfect recall meant they carried a complete archive in human form. Even if Knox destroyed the papers, the testimony would survive. Their final stop was the most dangerous, the McBride Ranch, where Amara had escaped weeks earlier. The property bordered Knox's operational headquarters. "Too risky," Elena warned. "If they spot us there, we're dead. We need to see how they're moving the stolen water. Physical evidence the marshal can follow." They approached the McBride place after sunset. The ranch showed signs of recent activity. New pipes had been installed, connecting to an elaborate pumping system. Water was being diverted from the natural aquifer to storage tanks. "They're stealing millions of gallons," Elena whispered. Amara studied the setup with eyes trained by necessity to notice details. "This connects to the Clearwater Springs system. They've tapped into the underground network. The pumping operation was massive. Industrial equipment that required significant investment. This wasn't small-time theft. Knox was building infrastructure for permanent water control." "Federal marshals will need to see this," Elena said. "They will. But first we need to get back to Zane." The return journey took them past the original ranch. Knox's guards had settled into routine, taking turns sleeping while one maintained watch. Neither expected trouble from the empty desert. Amara circled to approach from the blind side of the well. The stone structure provided arose from the desert. Hoofbeats and shouting voices approached the ranch. Knox had returned with his men, their search unsuccessful. "No sign of the girl," Knox reported to his guards. "Checked every trail and waterhole between here and the territorial line." "Maybe she's still hiding local," one man suggested. "Or maybe she's already talking to federal marshals." Knox's voice carried dangerous frustration. "Either way, we can't wait much longer." He entered the house and studied Zane with calculating eyes. "Your girl seems to have vanished completely. Impressive for someone traveling alone in hostile territory." "She's resourceful, indeed. Too resourceful for my comfort." Knox pulled out his pocket watch. "I'm giving her until sunrise to surface. After that, you become unnecessary." "Killing me won't stop federal investigation." "Perhaps not, but it will eliminate one witness." Knox posted guards around the entire property. No one could approach without being seen. The trap was closing, but not the way Knox intended. Amara had heard every word from her hiding spot near the well. She knew exactly when Marshal Harrison would arrive. She knew exactly what evidence they'd collected. And she knew exactly how to ensure Knox incriminated himself beyond any shadow of doubt. The federal marshals were riding hard through the night, following Elena's brother's urgent message. By dawn, everything would change. The question was whether Zane would live to see justice served. Dawn brought the sound of approaching horses from multiple directions. Knox's men took defensive positions, expecting federal marshals or territorial authorities. Instead, Fletcher Knox himself rode up with a final ultimatum. "Time's up, Thornton. Sign the water rights transfer or join your predecessors in the desert." Knox spread legal documents across the kitchen table. The papers would transfer all water rights to his shell company for a token payment of $50 from different directions. Too many to be coincidence. "Federal marshals," one guard called out. Knox's face went pale. Impossible. No one could have reached Santa Fe and returned this quickly. Through the window, Zane saw Federal Marshal James Harrison approaching with 6 deputies. Behind them rode Elena Rodriguez and 3 other local ranchers. All carried rifles and grim determination. "You betrayed me," Knox snarled at Zane. "I never left the ranch. Your men can confirm that." Knox realized his mistake too late. The girl hadn't fled to Santa Fe. She'd stayed local and gathered allies. Federal authorities had been contacted through other channels. "Surrender peacefully," Marshal Harrison called from outside. "You're surrounded by federal deputies." Knox's men looked to their leader for direction. Years of successful intimidation hadn't prepared them for legitimate law enforcement. "We can fight our way out," one gunman suggested. "Against federal marshals? That's suicide," Knox replied. The moment of decision stretched like a taut rope. Knox could surrender and face trial, or fight and face certain death. His empire was crumbling, but he might still escape with his life. Marshal Harrison entered through the front door with weapons drawn, but not threatening. Professional competence radiated from every movement. "Fletcher Knox, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and murder." "You can't prove murder." "No bodies, no witnesses." "We have witnesses and evidence." Amara emerged from her hiding spot behind the house. She carried the canvas bag containing all of Sterling Boone's documents. Her perfect memory held details of conversations Knox thought were private. "This girl can recite your confession from yesterday word for word," Marshal Harrison said. including your admission about Sterling Boone's disappearance." Knox's face showed dawning horror. His casual boast, Knox said quietly. "That's between you and the federal prosecutor." Marshal Harrison's deputies secured Knox and his men without resistance. The gunmen recognized futility when they saw it. Federal charges meant federal prison or federal gallows. 6 months later, Zane stood in territorial court watching justice delivered. Knox received 20 years in federal prison. Judge Morrison got 15. Samuel Wickham received 10 years and forfeiture of all assets. 12 other conspirators faced similar sentences. The corruption network was dismantled completely. Zane's water rights were confirmed and protected under federal oversight. He used the legal ownership to establish a water cooperative serving small ranchers throughout the territory. Families who'd lost access could now afford irrigation for their crops and livestock. Amara received a substantial federal reward for her testimony and evidence gathering. She used the money to establish the territory's first school that welcomed all children regardless of background. Her perfect memory made her an exceptional teacher. Elena Rodriguez became Zane's business partner in the water cooperative. Together they ensured fair distribution and reasonable pricing for essential resources. 1 year after signing papers for a cursed ranch, Zane surveyed his thriving property. The cooperative supported dozens of families. The school educated children who'd never had opportunities before. The conspiracy that had destroyed so many lives was finally broken. Amara visited regularly, bringing updates about her students and stories of their progress. The girl who'd hidden in a well now stood before territorial officials, advocating for educational funding. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out this way?" she asked during one visit. "Never," Zane admitted. "I just wanted a roof and a chance to rebuild." Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best opportunities. The cursed ranch had become a symbol of hope and honest prosperity. Justice had prevailed through courage, truth, and the partnership of two people society had dismissed as